Okay, so next we'll have Kyle Harrington, and he will discuss with us something coming into the future about the next season, Alfalfa, especially with the work on the Alfalfa Weevil, and how we can prepare for the season next year. And for you guys who are like attending in person, he will have some few prizes if you can like pay attention to him and answer one or two of his questions. Okay, Kyle, it's all yours. Where is it?
We should be good to go. So some good discussions there, and I agree with Jason. These are tent talks, not Zoom talks. So we definitely prefer people to come in person to these so we can engage in good conversations. I'm sure you guys have seen a lot of this. Some of these are decades old, I'm sure, by now to you. There might be some new growers online that might get some information. If you were at the Desert Ag Conference, you might have got a handout card that was given to you with a QR code. We have some fancier ones today that you can spill your coffee on and it'll wipe right off. You don't have to worry about damaging cards. Today I'm going to talk about the main pest that I deal with. Kyle Harrington. I'm also a PhD student in entomology and insect science, focused in agricultural integrated pest management. Better now. All right. So the first graph that you have is going to be the seasonal occurrences of the major insect pests in low desert grown alfalfa. That did say Egyptian alfalfa weevil on it at some point. That's actually going to be one of my next chapters to look at. We've already done a little bit of genome sequencing to know that we have at least 2 different biotypes in this region. So I'll find out if one of those biotypes is even actually the Egyptian. There are 2 others, the Eastern and the Western. So I'll be focusing primarily or entirely on alfalfa weevil talking today, as we feel pretty confident that we've got some good management tools out now, at least we better. As of April, it's now published in the Journal of Economic Entomology. So to me, that's concrete information. Alfalfa weevil is going to do major damage to your field, as I'm sure any alfalfa grower knows. So I've got an image down there of one of our trials, treated and untreated, and the amount of damage that they're doing to the leaves themselves on the alfalfa. They're skeletonizing these leaves. This is yield loss during high dollar cuttings of alfalfa, depending on your contractor, depending on who you're selling it to. These can be some of the highest values cuts of the year. Threshold that I was changing was coming out of California from 1975. This was 15 to 20 larvae per sweep. I'm pretty sure every grower of alfalfa here, unless they need their prescription checked on their eyeglasses, knows that you cannot wait until 15 to 20 per sweep. So flipping the page, we conducted our design of experiment. We did 4 years worth of trials at Maricopa Ag Center, conducted under randomized complete block design. That's what you see there on your images in color. We did weekly samples. We did 5 180-degree sweeps per plot. And so we sort out whether we're seeing small, large larvae or adults in our sorting process. We go into the results of those trials, and you're seeing linear regressions for each one of those years that we had. And so these numbers here were when we were just looking at larvae in general. So what we were actually able to do is, because we sorted for small, large, and adults, we can then look at each linear relationship for each life stage there. And then we can also do what's called a covariance analysis, which is looking at if there's significance between any of those life stages from one year to the next. So a small larva, we saw decrease in yield, but we had 2 years that were significantly different than the other ones. So we couldn't pool that data together to have one stronger figure. However, with large larvae, I feel like we got lucky. They're easier to see, easier to count in the sweep net. Large larvae, there was no significance between the years, so that we can then pool that data to have one strong figure, one reduction per pest value. And so we found that number to be 0.06. So for every one large larva that you have in your field, in your sweep, your 180-degree sweep, you have a 0.06 ton per acre reduction. Correct, yeah. So I mean, everyone's going to have different field sizes. It's your guys' fields. The more data is always better, but you know, separate your field into what is manageable and get as many quadrants as you can. More is always better. Again, these are your guys' fields that you're managing. So we're doing in one area 5 180-degree sweeps, and then however many that you feel is appropriate for your field.
Yeah. So some of the data suggests that you divide your field like an 80-acre field into 4 quadrants and take 5 from each of these quadrants. I've always been confused on a lot of the university research because the sweep net is not
right. So if we're like if we're looking at the cotton, right. So different because we're looking at multiple amounts of plants. I mean, there's even some researchers that say we should be doing stem instead of sweeps. From a practicality standpoint, aphids, I can see that. You're talking about a golf ball or a grapefruit of aphids that you're going to get in 5 sweeps some years. But to have 1 large larva per sweep that I'm doing, how many stems are we talking? And we just saw how many plants are in 1 square foot of an area. It's a lot of stems you have to be pulling for such a low number that's going to do that damage to your field. So again, with that one, that was still showing all larvae combined. So that was showing small and large. When we were able to separate them and do the analysis, it starts making a much clearer picture. And actually on the statistical analysis side, shows that we're much better at showing those values with that particular life stage. And all of those were done, which makes it actually better. It's not the same variety and the same year stand. So we didn't do an Alfalfa second year stand in the same variety for every single year. These were different varieties done at different years of growth, different stands. So that helps the data even more. So then we moved into something visual that you can have as far as your possible action thresholds. I didn't realize until I printed these out. Some of you guys have 25 cents a color page. I was going to leave them in that order. So you're seeing it in 3, 4, 1, 2. I meant it to be 1, 2, 3, 4. But it kind of shows the same picture that based on the value of your hay in tons and the cost of treatment. So this is total cost of treatment. So if it's $5 for the product, $12 to do custom application, that's 17. So we're talking total cost of treatment for your application. And based on those values, whether you have 1, 2, 3, or 4 large larvae per sweep, green is green light, go. Red is stop. Like that's pretty straightforward for you guys. We're going to make it more helpful here in a second. This is going to be a lot more helpful. So our next table is the efficacy trial that we did this year. We're still kind of crunching numbers. We had an interesting replication. But from what I can tell you right now is all of the treatments there were significantly different from the untreated control. So Warrior is still working well in our area. I know we're hearing Yuma, definitely some issues in Northern California where we might have some possible resistance to pyrethroids. In our area, everything is looking fine for right now. So we're still going to be good to use that product. Definitely want to rotate mode of actions, be a good steward. Have your MOAs on there. We're working with a product that might come into registration. Most likely not by next year, but it is a novel AI. So we are throwing that one in. We do also have a couple of products on here that are not registered, but those companies are looking into getting them registered. So again, maybe another couple of mode of actions that we can look into to rotate into. Yes, sir. So we saw, and again with the data analysis, the adults aren't doing that much feeding. They're doing a little bit, but their main job is mate. So coming in early. Right, exactly. So, and that's a really good point. Usually if you're getting a good timing, once is only going to do it, but at these low numbers, that one shot that you're doing, you might be helping yourself out economically to do it possibly even earlier. You're still going to do one, but you're going to capture more of your yield that you would have lost if you're treating at a better threshold number.
And one thing is that most of the chemistries that we have has less effect on the larvae. This is still a weevil with a lot of cuticle And it's quite hard, even with some systemic insecticide, to penetrate through this cuticle.
So Worku's going to pass around, and everyone online is going to have a QR code. We thank you very much for not surfing the web during our presentations. I'm going to break the rules. I'm going to tell you to break out your smartphone. Duarte, do you want to grab those three cups and look at my truck for me? I got some prizes to see who has the quickest fingers. You still on a flip phone, Jason? I figured. Well, at least you have the 1, 2, 3, and 4 in red and green, so you can go off of those. This just definitely makes it a lot nicer. So when you use your camera and you scan over that QR code, you should be prompted to go to a website. Make sure that it's working for everyone. They still work, I get it. Someday, guys, we'll get you there. Correct, yes. So you have the QR code, you have the website there at the bottom of the QR code. So this is online, but if you're ever not sure, and if you're BCA, you need to make a quick recommendation. Most BCAs, I'm hoping, do have smartphones now. I think that'd be a requirement. I don't think get away with a flip phone nowadays. All right, so on that site that I just took you to, you're gonna have two tabs, two rolling bars that you can adjust. So one is going to be the same values that we looked at. One is going to be what you believe your value of your crop to be in dollars per ton. And then that second variable is going to be what you can look at it two different ways. You can say, I'm already going to use this product, so I know exactly how much I'm going to spend based on that product. Or maybe if it's time to rotate your mode of action, and if you have that price available, then you can look at what the threshold is going to change based on that. Because it is a moving target. We're not talking about it's going to be the same for every single one. Someone's going to have a different value for their ton. Someone's going to be willing to spend more or less for their application. So it is a moving threshold. So I've got 3 cups here today. I've got Taylor keeping you guys honest. So what would, if your value of hay was $220 a ton and you were willing to spend $17 to treat? Again, that's total. So however you want to break that up, if it's, what's the number? Give that man a mug. I've got camel, I've got black, I've got stainless. Now there's only camel and stainless left. Now you know how quick to move. All right, so what if you had $200 a ton hay and only $15 to treat? Get that man a mug. You hear? What about $260 a ton and $50 an acre to treat? All right, fine, get that man a mug. Who else out of here? 3.3? 3.3. Camo or stainless? All right, so we'll treat that the same. What if for some reason you have $150 ton an acre, but you're still willing to spend $50 an acre? 5.6. We're seeing how this changes. It's not one set number. It's going to be based on the value of your crop and how much you're willing to treat on. $15 to $20, regardless. Right. So it was already way above. And I can tell you from the data, even if you're seeing 3.3, and we must stress, and you'll have an image on that website, we are counting large larvae per suite. So we're not counting small larvae, we're counting large larvae per suite. But even if we're at that 3.3, I can guarantee you there's not going to be 12.7 small larvae in that count. The numbers just don't work that way. So we're counting large larvae, know your value of your hay, see what you're willing to spend for your treatment, and let's be ready. 2022. So in terms of cutting early in a sense, or so if you're saying if you're going to be late, right? So we haven't seen that because alfalfa is growing a new stem. It's not regrowing the stems that you're cutting, right? So you're not going to have. So that's right. That's the other is based on time of cutting. So if you're 1 week away, maybe go ahead and cut. Then right, you might have an issue in that second one. If you're 2.5 or more weeks out, use this like we haven't updated to show that, but there is that. If say you're just 2 weeks out and you decide to cut, number one, we need a little bit more data on how much yield reduction are they doing under those windrows. They're still feeding underneath there and a decent amount. And we're in the winter/spring. I don't really have winter in Arizona, but early spring, it's sitting in that field a while before it's getting baled. It's not getting baled in 3 days. It's sitting there for maybe 7, 8, 9 days before it's dry enough that you can actually bale it. They're going to do a lot of feeding in that time period. They're out of the field. You're taking them with you. Protein for the cows, I would say. And yeah, green shop, you're taking them with you. You might knock a couple down, but yeah, if you have a contract with green shop, I'd say that's just as effective. Right.
The other thing is about also the management is with this threshold, many came and said, okay, does that mean we are spraying more? The answer to that, we did some of this experiment for the efficacies, and we have like 2 different times of the application. One is very early, and the other one when just let it go a little bit. And every time we come and see that you need to go as early as you can. So once you detect these larvae in your field, that's the time when you are getting this application. And we have a couple of this experiment when we go early and we just clean the field. And you have one of the experiments, I think we run it for 44 days, and you're good. There is nothing in the 44 days period. The other one, we just let it go a little bit over this threshold. You are talking about 5 larvae, and we couldn't control them. No, we use the same kind or same group of chemicals. You couldn't control them to a level that will not cause damage, because you let them go for a little bit above the threshold. So the message here is just use this calculator. Once you find that your larva is there, especially the large one, that's when you have to go and do your control measure.
Right. We have thresholds for aphids. We have thresholds for Weevil. So don't mix those up. Right. With aphids, we've seen, depending on the species that you have, years that blue alfalfa aphids in the field, you're gonna want to be managing those. We're seeing that alfalfa can handle a pretty good amount of the other ones. We don't have spotted. We do, but not in high enough populations. They're also very damaging. But cowpea generally very isolated, and the aphid, they can sustain a good amount of that, right? So if you're hoping that you saw a whole bunch of aphids and you're just assuming that if you have that grapefruit, that there's weevils in that grapefruit of aphids also, and you treat on that and you say, well, I treated, so I must have covered my larva by that point. They might have still been in egg form inside the stem. You might not have. Be diligent, keep on scouting fields. All right, this is where we say thank you to everyone on Zoom. As noted in the agenda, our next topic will be in-person learning. Like for stress, when we have these in-person meetings, please come out to these in-person meetings. Get into some good discussions. Thank you.
Thank you. So we will